the employers have labor shortages. They may not be able to recruit enough Canadians or permanent residents to fulfill their business needs. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sajjad Malik. I'm a barrister and solicitor, a Canadian business and immigration lawyer, and I'm speaking to you from my office in Oakville. Today, I have decided to speak to you about work permits. Work permit is a term which you might have heard, and if you haven't heard, we keep on hearing it every now and then. Every day, we have several inquiries from clients who are foreign nationals who tell us or ask us that they wish to apply for a work permit. Could we help them in the work permit? Now, please remember, work permit is not as easy to attain or to obtain like a visa, like a visitor visa. It's not a tourist visa. It's not a visitor visa. You need an employer who's willing to sponsor you in Canada, and then you may be able to apply for a work permit. Now, why would a Canadian employer sponsor a foreign national for coming to Canada? A foreign national, one, must be eligible. That foreign national must have a skill set. That foreign national must know language, English or French, which is prevalent in Canada or which is spoken in Canada. He should have that language skills. That foreign national should be admissible to Canada. He shouldn't have any criminal, medical, or other background. That foreign national should be compliant with immigration regulations. He should have something in his history and in documentation which could assure the immigration officers that if they grant that person a work permit, that person would be able to come to Canada. But hold, before that, before you jump into calculating or thinking that yes, you have never violated immigration regulations, you have no criminal background, you know English well, you have some skill set. If you have all this, are you entitled to the work permits? No. Before that, you must fall in one of the categories which entitles you to a work permit. Now, the first category I will speak to you about is the work permits for the people who are sponsored by a Canadian employer. So in Canada, there are 10 provinces, 3 territories, so many different employers and business and otherwise who are looking for people to take up the jobs, who are looking for people to do. Most of the times, Canadians are permanent residents, they are available to take those jobs. But at certain occasions, the employers have labor shortages. They may not be able to recruit enough Canadians or permanent residents to fulfill their business needs. So in that case, their employer must apply to the Canadian government after putting in strong recruitment efforts that they were not able to hire a Canadian or for a permanent resident to do a job. So in that case, if they get approval from the government, they could hire foreign national, and after that the foreign national has to apply for the work permit where he will have to demonstrate everything which we initially talked about, your language proficiency, skill set, your admissibility to Canada. Now, are there some other kinds of work permit? Yes, there are work permits which are tied up to businesses. For example, if you're a business person, you are eligible under a business program. You start your application and then you are approved by a province or some level federally. You may be able to apply for a work permit so you could come to Canada, run that business, and provide significant benefit to the Canadian economy or Canadians. Now, that's another kind of work permit. Now, these two broader categories of work permits, one for the business, other for an employer, they are both tied up to that particular business or that particular employer. So if you have approval of one of these work permits, you cannot work for another employer or you cannot do another business while you're here. There are some other kinds of work permits which may be called open work permits. Now, these open work permits will give permission to someone who has those work permits to work in Canada with any employer of their choice. They are not bound or they are not attached to a single employer. One such example is the postgraduate work permits. Now, postgraduate work permits may be granted to those students in Canada who have undertaken a specific course from a certain kind of an educational institution. After completing their education, they could apply for those work permits, and once allowed, they may be able to work in Canada. For example, if you're someone who has come to Canada on a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, you completed that degree from a designated learning institution, you may be able to apply for an open work permit, postgraduate work permit commonly known, and then you could do that job. There are some other kind of work permits which are attached to those people whose parents or whose spouses have secured one kind of work permit. So if your spouse or your parent has a work permit from an employer or from a business, you are the dependent, that your dependent spouse or your child who's below 22 years of age, you may be able to apply along with your parents for an open work permit and come secure that open work permit and start working in Canada. If you are spouse of a Canadian and you're inside Canada, now your spouse has sponsored you for spousal sponsorship, then in that case you may also apply for an open work permit, and during the processing of your application you could secure a work permit. Similarly, if you are a business person and you have pitched a case to the Canadian government that you are investing this amount of money and you'll be creating this job and you'll be providing significant benefit to the Canadian market or Canadian organizations, people, culture, or social fabric, in that case you may also be entitled to an open work permit. You could come on an open work permit and work here. Similarly, if you are a startup entrepreneur, you had a startup innovative idea, you pitched it to a designated organization, you got the support letter, then in that case you may apply for a closed work permit at this time, but in future there will be a possibility that you could also apply for open work permit under that category. Similarly, the religious workers, they could apply for work permits under specific conditions after taking specific approvals. If you are an actor or an athlete, if you are from a country which has a bilateral agreement with Canada, bilateral trade agreement with Canada, you may be able to apply for a work permit as well. And there are so many other different categories of these work permits. It is not one type of work permits. There are different types of work permits. Broadly speaking, the closed work permits and open work permits, there are multiple categories in closed work permit, there are multiple categories in open work permits. I believe there are more than 2-3 dozens types of work permits. So if you are interested in coming to Canada on a work permit, the way to go is not messaging a lawyer or a consultant or any other regulated professional that you want to buy a work permit, because there are scoundrels out there, there are scammers out there who would tell you you could pay them money and they could get you a work permit. No, don't think of that. Instead, get into a formal legal consultation with a lawyer. Ask the lawyer to evaluate your opportunities of securing work permits, whether you may be eligible under one or the other class of work permit, and then whatever is the class which suits you the best, the work permit would originate or would come out of that application. So please beware of scammers, beware of those people who are telling you that they could provide you a work permit with $20,000, $40,000, $80,000 payment. That is a scam, and you may be trapped and you won't get work permit and you may not even get your money back. So if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and you'll keep on getting some regular feed of our videos. If you are someone who is interested in getting a work permit through a legitimate way, through the best possible opportunity which is available as per your profile, you're most welcome to get in touch, and we'll be doing our best in assisting you securing the best and the most appropriate kind of work permit in your circumstances. Thank you very much once again. My information is displayed at the end of the video. Please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to speaking to many of you. Thank you.